Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Megaman Rock Force. In the last part, we finished off the second round of Fusion Robot Masters, and now we're on to the final Fusion Robot Master of a sort, a fusion of all 8, Deathman. And his name is pretty literal. This stage has no normal enemies. This stage is entirely spikes and various other instant death traps. If you have the difficulty setting on that's on by default, where spikes do I want to say either a fourth or an eighth of your health, this stage isn't too much to worry about, because they're very fair about the instant death traps and that they always give you a chance to see what's coming up. But if you have the Mega Man 2 difficulty on, or the Mega Man 1 one for that matter, with spikes, you're in for a time. Also, hi, Nightman. Oh, you're gonna help me out? Thanks, buddy. I love your game! Either way, let's go over Deathman's bio, because even though he's not one of the main 16 Robot Masters, the rest of the game's bosses still have bios. A government-issue robot, Deathman is one of the most powerful robots of the current generation. After the incident at the Monsteropolis hydroelectric facility, the government, in a bid for public approval, felt it necessary to create a robot explicitly for hunting down and destroying dangerous robots. His energy matrix is one of the most complex ever created, requiring no less than 8 times the energy of a typical robot master to function properly. However, once he was presented to the public, many felt his appearance and purpose were much too grisly to be considered the new face for security and peace. Not only that, taxpayers cited his extremely costly upkeep as excessive and unneeded, given the formation of Mega Man's new Rock Force team. Having fulfilled his true goal of political posturing, Deathman was allowed to function as a crop farmer until his energy source depleted within a few months. When it came time to collect him, his body was never found. That is probably the most interesting bio to me, just because it implies the government's actually trying to do stuff in Mega Man, which, well, outside of ZX, I suppose that's new. The government is worthless in Mega Man because he does everything, and he's not even technically meant to be a combat robot. He's just a helper bot who does a lot more than help. Also, it occurred to me after I finished the recording for the last part that I think I forgot to mention Portman's other weakness. Yeah, he's weak to Pulse Stopper normally, but Gyroman's his Robot Master weakness. And if you're going entirely Rock Force weaknesses, you're going to want to bring Cutman into here. Though, unlike most of the other Robot Masters, I can't think of a reason why Cutman would be his weakness. Because usually there's some relevance to, in the bio, to like what the type of energy they're weak to is, concussive force, so on and so forth. Having a rivalry with Nitro Man in Thrill Man's case. I legitimately can't think of a reason why Cutman would be Deathman's weakness. I can think of a reason for his actual weakness, though, and that is Charade Clone. Why is this thing the weakness of so many things? Deathman only has 2 or 3 attacks, however, he makes up for it by being extraordinarily powerful. 4 hits of anything will kill you. He will bounce around the room over and over again, basically going wherever the hell he wants, and throwing his scythe at the walls to bounce it all over the place. After that, he's going to try and throw it at the center of the field, in which case he's going to try and suck you in. However, as long as you're keeping an eye on where he is when he's trying to bounce around during that, he shouldn't actually hit you. Honestly, in terms of getting a perfect, he's one of the easiest bosses in the game to do it against. It's just that getting hit is ridiculously punishing. I'm not sure, by the way, if you have beat parts still left to get at this point, if you can anymore. I think the 4th Fusion Master is the last Robot Master you can get a perfect run against for a beats part. I don't think Deathman counts. That's an oddly game cleary sounding victory theme, but you look at the timer already. Oh, hey, Justice Man! Justice Man, what are you doing here? I didn't expect you to defeat Deathman. Are you behind all of this? Why? For freedom, Mega Man. Freedom. Since Shockman damaged me, I've seen things differently. I see robots perishing needlessly under a foolish law, lacking the ability to question such injustice. But I held the key now shared with my team of robot masters. Soon others will share my gift and finally see just how corrupt humans can be. We will no longer be bound by human limitations. I won't let you hurt anyone. I don't intend to hurt anyone, humans and robots alike. That's why we took special care to capture your team. Though, as expected, you took more extreme measures to subdue. I don't understand. Humans aren't what you make them out to be. Not all creators are like Dr. Light, Megaman. Not every human shares the same hope for our future. To some, we're mere tools. Ready to be scrapped once we no longer serve a purpose. Dr. Light renewed many robots to spare them from that fate. You did the same by establishing the Rock Force. That is not why I formed the Rock Force. Whatever your intentions, these actions are not enough. Why didn't you try to convince me of your views before? You would have exposed me. Your connection to humanity is simply too strong. However, I will save you, brother. Soon the world will know just how important we are, and I really skipped through that text too quickly. Dr. Light, Justice Man is behind all of this! It's as I feared. As you've been away, I've been researching the damage on Justice Man's integrated circuits. I can't say for certain yet, but it is important you return him to the lab immediately. Otherwise, we might all be in grave danger. We'll do our best. And thus the true villain is revealed to be Justice Man, which honestly is very predictable if you pay attention during cutscenes. It's worth noting, by the way, cutscenes in the game, for the most part, if you're playing as any of the other Robot Masters, they do have different dialogue tailored to each individual Robot Master's personality. Like, Flame Man's constantly spouting off against his flames of justice and stuff like that. That was actually added in the 2015 update, along with, I think, I don't want to say all 8 Fusion Robot Masters, but definitely the latter 4 of them. And Justice Man's castle is a bit different in that the bosses of them are going to be more Robot Masters. For instance, this is the stage of Fishman, and each of them do have their own bios. By the way, if you're going for Rock Force weaknesses, you're going to want to bring in Dive Man. This is actually the only stage that's really useful. Also, this extra life is a bit special. It's not just an extra life, it's also an energy recap. It's also one of the few cases I can think of in a Mega Man game where the safer route in a drop sequence like that leads to the reward. Most of the time they decide to put the rewards behind the harder routes just because risk versus reward, obviously. This being an underwater stage, you do have to worry about the physics, and they do put some pretty perilous jumps in here. However, because you have things like Charade Clone, there's less to worry about, thankfully. Either way, let's go over Fishman's bio. At first glance, Fishman appears to be an organic life form, but this is not the case. To carry out his mission of deep-sea exploration, his creators felt that a more organic appearance would allow him to observe life forms without frightening them. Scientists required a skin-like polymer used primarily for robot faces, and applied it to his entire body to make him more maneuverable in water and adaptable to pressure changes. Though he is still durable, his porous skin is susceptible to contaminants and microbiological life forms. After extensive underwater missions, he's been known to build up quite the stink. His fish finders were once used to explore the areas that even he couldn't access, but after joining Justice Man's ranks, they're fitted with explosives to become incredibly deadly tracking torpedoes. In fact, speaking of which, that reminds me, during an earlier Robot Master bio, I mentioned whoever was behind this. The bio outright said Justice Man, but the predictable reveal, I did not want to reveal. Overall, this stage is pretty easy, I want to say, barring these very annoying jumps. Thank God I had spike protections. Because when you get down to it, lengthwise, gimmicks-wise and such, while yeah, they combine a bit of the things from the main stages, just like the Robot Master Fusion stages did, they're essentially still just normal stages for this game, in terms of length, pacing, so on and so forth. Which I guess is something that I can like about this game, is that even though they're the Fortress stages, they still feel like normal stages. It's still climactic, don't get me wrong, but they fit the tone right, I guess, is what I'm looking for, but that doesn't feel right at the same time. Words are hard, especially in language as sewn together by dissolvable pieces of silly string English. Although, the castle also got one of the biggest changes in one of the updated versions of the game, but that's strictly for the final stage, and I'll talk about that next part when we get to it. Beat is also going to be very useful here. Big surprise, Beat's useful in this game, given how they've already used him pretty well. He's especially useful for taking care of the little enemies in the bottom of the screen. I'm not doing it because I have Phantom Fuse and I'm feeling like I can use it, but if you're if you don't want to use your main robot master weapons, go for it. Either way, it's time for Fishman. If the microbiological thing in his bio wasn't enough to tell you, he's weak to viral outbreak. But this fight's a bit different, and that's 2 phases. He has with a mini-boss as a steed. However, the steed is also weak to viral outbreak. It's gonna pop out of the various holes in the wall and show up to fire a couple of projectiles. Whenever it moves, it fires down missiles at you. Fairly simple stuff, honestly. Fishman himself is going to be doing more of the same. His fish torpedoes are going to try and home in on you whenever he charges them out. He can go into the pathways and swim from side to side, dropping mines. And I think that's about it. Very easy boss, especially with his weakness. The fish torpedoes can also come out of the stuff, as usual. Also, I'm showing a save file, just so you can see what my save files are looking like at this point. Got just about one of everything. And now we're going to go on. Also, there's a continue option. The main reason I'm showing that is so you can know that in between stages, you can go back to the stage select and buy things from Auto Shop if you need it. Save the game, so on and so forth. The game saves wherever you were. It's like Megaman 10, I think, was the one that did that the best. I think 8 did that. Or did it? I forget. Most of the time in Wily Castles, although this isn't exactly a Wily Castle, I play through the game in one go anyway, so saving doesn't matter much. I know it's usually the classic games that are inconsistent about that too, now that I think about it, because the X series, it saves whatever Sigma castle stage you're on. Zero saves whatever stage you're on. Battle Network and Star Force are RPGs, so that doesn't exactly work the same to begin with. Same with Legends. Classic's the only one that's a bit inconsistent with that. It made more sense, I suppose, in games where save batteries weren't exactly an easy thing to come by, especially for bigger passwords that would allow for stuff like that. Like the Game Boy games, I don't think saved whatever part of the castle you were on through the passwords. Or did they? Again, it's been a while. I haven't played most of those games since my LPs. And those, I recorded Mega Man Worlds 3 or 4 at my brother's house partially when I was over at his place for, I think that was PAX East that year. Ah, memories. It's funny looking back because my brother was like, you should play Final Fantasy XIV at that time because they had the Heavens Ward thing. I think Sephiroth was being added to the game at the time. And I was like, I don't like MMOs. I have over 14 days with the playtime of a character in 14. And while that's pretty low compared to some people who have been around since the Realm Reborn, that's a lot more game time than I put into a lot of other games. I really like Final Fantasy XIV, by the way. I don't think I've really mentioned that much on the channel, but that is a thing I like. Shadowbringers was absolutely fantastic. Either way, the second stage in Justice Man's castle is ice-themed, and the boss of it is Polarman. Whenever you're in the snow like this, you are slowed down, and there are ice physics in this stage, but only on the ice-type blocks. And as for Polarman's bio, most roboticists have the foresight to program a sense of fulfillment into their robots, so that robots with the most mundane tasks can enjoy their life. There are many instances of sloppy programming leading to eventual discontent, but none worse than Polarman. Day in, day out, the daily grind of removing snow began to wear down on him mentally, especially when he knew there were other ice-themed robots out there exploring the world and achieving great things. He grew cold towards people and other robots with more satisfying careers. So when approached by Justice Man and offered a chance to be something great, Polarman jumped at the proposition. As one of Justice Man's robot generals, he guards the fortress's cooling systems with utmost ferocity, now using his polar plow's attack to remove intruders rather than snow. You know what? As someone who lives in Massachusetts, I feel that snowplow thing, because from like November to basically April or May, depending on the year, there's a lot of snow. Not as much as, say, Canada, Alaska, parts of Maine, Russia, but still a good bit. Thankfully, we have the facilities to deal with it, but people down in, like, Florida, where I was born, that's, they're not doing too good whenever snow hits. Doesn't hit often, but it does. This enemy, this stage also has one of the more blatant instances of enemy reuse, because those Santa Clauses are just the Indiana Jones from Cryptman's level recolored. Either way, it's time for Polarman himself, and he's going to be driving his big polar plow. For the first phase of this fight, the polar plow is what we need to fight. We need to damage it through the ice. It's going to fire these snowflake enemies from earlier up in the air, and you need to dodge them. If you shoot them, they split apart, obviously, into various things that can hurt you. The big thing we need to look out for is two things. When it fires an ice cube on the ground, jump on it and jump off of it and fire a charge shot at the eyes to do big damage. Additionally, though, the plow can also shoot out a giant snowball from the top of it that will land wherever you are and split off into, I think, 4 different smaller snowballs that I swear are near impossible to dodge in certain situations. Because I feel like they're partially random as to where the snow parts go, but don't quote me on that because honestly I don't know for certain. And I'll be real, I actually don't know if this thing's weak to something because charge shots are just better for it in my eyes. Especially given if it shares a weakness with Polarman itself, it's weak to photon flare, and that is a pretty low ammo weapon. Polarman himself is going to be separating his upper and lower body fairly often, leaving the upper body bouncing while the lower body chases after you to kind of keep your space low. You can also fire some shockwaves out at you, and occasionally I think you can just throw a bunch of snow at you and his upper body. Overall, though, not a very hard boss, but certainly one of the harder bosses in the game if you're not using weaknesses, because he gets pretty active and covers a lot of space pretty quickly. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 7, we're heading off to Endgame. See you guys then.